are going to talk about this. However, I imagine you're now asking yourself two questions, or perhaps asking me them. Number one, why are we going to talk about this? And number two, what even is this? Well, let's start with the latter, and let me introduce you to a little something called Monster Hunter Mezeporta Reclamation. Okay, don't go anywhere. I realize that probably didn't clear anything up. But it's important to set the context here that this is an official Monster Hunter game, a spin-off of a spin-off of Frontier, and it got its own dedicated, well, anime-esque trailer, because that's how confident they were in this Monster Hunter Mezeporta Reclamation. Mezeporta, I'm sure you're aware, but if you're not, is the hub city of Monster Hunter Frontier. Frontier being a sadly lost Monster Hunter MMO. Again, you probably know this, and of course, last year, me and Cotton very much greatly enjoyed playing through it, along with you guys, and exploring, yes, Mezeporta. So what exactly is this that's a spin-off of that? And it's a browser-based game where you kind of look after a version of Mezeporta that you can call your own, go on explorations and hunts with a group of characters that each have their own weapon that's one of the Monster Hunter weapons, and upgrade those characters, and generally, you know, do all of the Monster Hunter-y things, in theory, and progress at your own leisure as a kind of sort of side monitor management game where you can get an extra bit of Monster Hunter fix. Now again, in theory. The reality is this released in 2014 and it didn't even make it to the end of 2017 before it got shut down because ultimately it was not the roaring success that those behind it might have hoped. Which is perhaps not something you're surprised at, given what you've been seeing so far of this. But before we get too further deep into the what of this entire escapade, I do want to address the why before you all think I've gone absolutely insane. A while ago in a Pro and Noob, I kind of brought up to Cotton the idea that, honestly, I would love a Monster Hunter city builder game. You know, your City Skylines, or the sequel that's coming, your Banished types for a more medievally take, or Anno 1800 for slightly older but still more modern than medieval take, and you get where I'm going with this, right? There is lots of them, and a lot of them are honestly really, really good, and I find it a very satisfying genre, a genre that I kinda began my love with by playing a certain game called Pharaoh. It is an older game. It first came out in 1999, and I really enjoyed it. Now, make no mistake, this game is brutal, and having anything other than the total decimation of your population to starvation, plague, disaster, and war happen is an achievement. And if any of you are sat here who are perhaps old enough to have played it, or have discovered it and played it, you're probably going, yep, okay, yep. While also, you know, generally having fond memories of the hell that is running an Egyptian settlement as their Lord and Master Pharaoh. But I don't want to digress too much. The idea, then, of a Monster Hunter skinned, essentially, version of a game like this is very cool. We'll delve into that idea a little bit more. But what's this got to do with Mezeporta Reclamation? Well, after that little conversation in that Pro and Noob, someone got in contact with me and said, hey, have you seen this? Because, like, a third of this game, a good chunk of it, a focus, is managing a Monster Hunter city, your own Mezeporta, getting the buildings up, managing the citizens as they walk around, or at least looking at them, and generally as you progress, your Monster Hunter city will grow. And that, yeah, vaguely is kind of that vibe that would scratch that itch. Now, we have covered a lot of really obscure, yet very real Monster Hunter games that have kind of make you question how they ever came to be. And most of them I'm very aware of. I obviously love the series and quite literally have made it my life for the last 5 years. And, you know, the 15 before that, I was a passionate fan since I first played Monster Hunter 1. Yet this one went under the radar. And ever since I got told of its existence, I have really gone down a rabbit hole with it. And at this point, I just need to talk about it. I just need to have this video and tell you guys about it, so I'm not the only one experiencing the madness that is this browser Monster Hunter game. Because when I first had a look at this, I was hoping for something like Fabledom that I lost a rare night of free time to about a month back. It's a really well-made game that's still in early access and actively being improved and updated and getting new features, and it's just a genuinely enjoyable, light, fun, yet very engaging city builder, with the vibe obviously being medievally, but it's also got fairy tale infusions. I would definitely recommend it if you're into that kind of thing, but as you're seeing, this is the city that I built in it. Now, I want you to imagine as you go around that this is a Monster Hunter hub. Pretend this is your own Dundalma. Pretend this is your own Mezeporta. This is your own Elgato. This is your own Astera. And so on and so forth. You place the people that go out and get wood to build the forges to make the hunters' weapons. You make sure the town has supplies to survive monster attacks. You construct the battle quarters with the siege weapons and the Dragonator so you can repel monsters. Basically, take the reins away from the hunter specifically in a direct hunt sense and be essentially the guild master of a town and the running of it. Instead of placing, you know, this like knight training building, I could place a hunter training building. Instead of this hero's hut, I could put down, you know, the guild hall where quests can start having, and you could watch parties of hunters go off into the forest near the city and deal with threats as they come up, and have to weather elder dragon attacks with your local guards and guild knights. And you kind of see the vibe, right? Just a full-on living, breathing, managed Monster Hunter game that flows in the way we're used to, but from the perspective of someone who has to keep their town alive in a world filled with, you know, apocalyptic elder dragons. You might not agree that sounds like a good time, but I really like that concept. So, to, again, take it back to Mezeporta Reclamation, that was supposedly going to have a feel of that. Now, obviously, a browser-based game where building sprites evolve as you complete various maze-like exploration overmaps, attacking sprites of monsters as you go around, is a very far cry from that. But technically speaking, it is a Monster Hunter game where a Monster Hunter village progresses as you do things and you have some control over it. So in the most thinnest of senses, yeah, and that was enough of a hook for me. But what I discovered and found and went on to is, let's call it generously turn-based combat, right? You explore, you walk into these monster sprites that look like this, and then you're faced with a bigger version of it, and you use the characters in your party to stack up attacks, and use special ones, and bring them down, get your materials, experience, all of that stuff. That's all well and good. But, like, you're seeing how it is, right? Hell, you could even do some siege-y stuff, so that's totally fun. And I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty of mechanically how it works. It is a dead browser Monster Hunter game that didn't manage to hold on to any significant audience, at least not enough to not be dead. It had a fairly large roster of monsters for what it was. You had some frontier monsters, of course, but the thing that really catches me here, and you also have this as your general overmap, the different locations to actually do things. You had the Great Forest and the swamp and the jungle, but the actual kind of moving around hunting was these little grid-like areas, and you go square to square, either gathering things or having encounters, and then you use the things you acquire to progress the various sectors of the town. There is like a vague kind of NPCs, and there's actual, you know, dialogue and stuff. They say things as voice lines, which is crazy to me. And events happen, and, you know, there was definitely an attempt. An attempt was made. But I really want to just spend a moment on the character design of this thing. Because, look, you've seen enough by now. You know the kind of audience that they were trying to attract. But I mean... why? Like, again, the answer to why is for obvious reasons. But at the same time... essentially, this official Monster Hunter game had the kind of character art for your party members representing each of the 14 weapons that you would get if you just searched Monster Armor Set name art on Google and then rolled that wild dice with what you know you would find there, a la if you searched Kirin Armor Art. It looks like that was the inspiration for the entire roster. And you do have a few cool ones, like Mr. Wilhelm. His name is Wilhelm, you see what I did there? Who's just, you know, big power Rathalos man. And that's kind of nice. You have giant meat hammer, so that's fun. That's Monster Hunter-y. You have a gun lance that's sort of working really well, you know. But then you come back around and it's like, hello, what are you doing here? What is going on here? And also, on top of that, the actual art style is really inconsistent between them. Like, they're vaguely similar, but you can kind of get a sort of vibe that they're not all essentially drawn with any consistent flow or line or coloring, and it just kind of... It just mystifies me. It really, really does. I wish there was more information on this. I wish I could go deeper down this rabbit hole, but you kinda can't, honestly, and perhaps that is for the best. Perhaps it is something that I will be thankful for as we go along. And obviously, the actual, you know, map moving and stuff, that is the reclamation. Taking each square, clearing it out, getting rid of the monsters, that is reclaiming the area around Mezeporta and what lets you build back up. And, you know, how could you resist working on that noble goal when you could fight such mighty monsters as Kongalala stuck eternally in this pose? But bottom line, in my quest to find something that kind of matched one of my, you know, pipe dream ways of experiencing a Monster Hunter world, what I found was one of the weirdest, interesting, let's call it experiments of Monster Hunter that I really never knew existed until now. This, again, interesting browser experience, Mezeporta Reclamation, and I could not bear this burden of knowledge alone, and now all of you guys share it with me. I hope you found it interesting. I'm also sorry, but at the same time, not that sorry. Let me know what you think of all this thing, and most importantly, let me know what you think of a kind of city builder a la Monster Hunter, which is really the core of what I'm going for here, because I still think that would be awesome, and I want backup on that. For now then, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future channel on Patreon down below. And until we meet again,
Josh, Cotton and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.